Boundless Spirit, pushing the limits of talk radio with Charlene Springer.
Ole Dammegard is a truth seeker coming from his years of experience as an investigative journalist. He has exposed with physical walkthroughs several false flag operations and may have even prevented a few. Ole has investigated many assassinations including JFK, Olaf Palme, Robert Kennedy, Martin Luther King, John Lennon, and Bob Marley, just to name a few. He has authored several books, including his latest, Coup, a sought-after speaker at many international conferences. Ole still finds time for his creative side as an artist, musician, and Raja yoga teacher. Ole was the recipient of the Prague Peace Prize for 2016. Okay, welcome. You're listening to Boundless Spirit Radio with Charlene Springer, and we have as our guest today Ole Dammegard. And for those of you who don't know who he is just an incredible guy, an author. And I don't know if I'd put him in the box of conspiracy theorists, because I think that just got a bad rap. And I think he is much more than that because he does the research. Ole does Light on Conspiracies. That's your website, lightonconspiracies.com. Very informative, lots of information there, lots of places that you can go, things you forgot about that he'll bring up there. You're welcome, Ole. Thanks for being on with us today.
Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure and honor.
Great. So, first of all, how did you get into this where you started looking at false flags?
I tell you, first of all, this thing you said about conspiracy theorists, that is actually a term that was created by the CIA right after they killed JFK. And it was a term so that they could throw it at any critical mind that would start asking questions. Because as soon as you add the word theory, there's a doubt. I'm not interested in theories at all. I'm only interested in facts. That's the only thing, because anybody can have a theory, but that doesn't help anyone. You know, you need the facts to see what is actually going on.
Yes.
And I've spent some 3 decades on going down this road, but it's been like a joint venture, because in one way I've looked at the spiritual aspect of things. And on the other hand, I've been into the darkest of the darkest corner. And this is why my sweetheart came up with this name, Light on Conspiracies, because that is exactly what I try to aim the spotlight right into the darkest of the so-called evil and into the belly of the beast to expose, because when you aim the light at these dark shadows, they disappear. The truth sets you free, and the truth just liberates. And this is the only reason why I'm in this area, because my God, I've had enough of all of this crap. But my intention is all the time compassion, forgiveness, fearless exposure, and how to transcend these dark areas so that we can create this beautiful, magnificent world the way it's supposed to be, without all of this messing around with us.
Craziness. So, now that you're in it, do you ever say to yourself, "What the heck did I get into?" And can I leave now?
No, not at all. I've been shit scared many times because. These forces, they're not that many when you look at it, but they're very, very brutal in their way of handling problems. And somebody like myself, who become hopefully a major pain in the butt for them, normally the way they deal with such problems is by erasing them. So it's a very brutal area to go into. So as I say, unfortunately, I've lost a couple of friends along the way. I had to move country as well. We moved from Sweden to Spain. But other than that, life is scary. Sometimes you have to be brave and you have to face these, your fears and stand up for what is true and right. And sometimes in some situations, some people lose their lives. And this is just something where I think to be able to make a difference, you have to come to the conclusion that you're willing to say, okay, fine. If this is what is needed, then I will do it. I sure would like to stay here for a long time, but I have accepted that is the reality of it all. But if it should be that I die for this, at least I would die proud. I would die fulfilled, with a heart filled with love and compassion for whoever did it as well. And I would be very happy with my life. I've had an amazing life, and I mean, what to say? I totally honor this road of truth. I'm in love with truth. I really am. The truth is so pure, so simple. It stands on its own. It fears no investigation. But these so-called conspiracies are like a cancer growth of where the people involved are so deep into this dark, I don't know what to call it,
abyss.
And these conspiracies are so violent, so smelly and stinky, and so filled with fear that very often they destroy themselves from within. So the only thing you have to do is fearlessly face them without any anger, without any resentment, without any hatred or revenge, and just aim the light at them, and they will self-destruct or change into a higher spiritual frequency where they will turn into love as well and change sides.
One of the things that you are known for is, as I said, getting more information about what they call false flags. Can you explain a little bit about what a false flag is for people that don't know?
Yeah, for sure. A false flag is it's actually more or less another name for state-sponsored terrorism, for inside jobs. It is an old naval term that came from the old days when England, Spain, Holland, these type of countries were traveling around the world, raping, plundering everywhere. But sometimes they just couldn't go in and massacre a people or a country or something like that without having problems, maybe with trade agreements and other neighboring countries and so on. So what they did was they came up with this psyop where they put the enemy's flag on one of their own ships, and then they let their own ship attack themselves, saying, so that they could say, oh my God, we're being attacked, we need to defend ourselves. And then that would justify them going in, rape and plunder and destruction. And they would even be seen as heroes. And this, I tell you, these false flags have been used, I don't know how many hundreds of times over the centuries. So when you look at it, I always try to go into extreme detail when it comes to my research and of historical events and these type of things. And there are so many of these like wars and terror acts and mass shootings and so on. I mean, I don't know how many I've looked into, and I mostly found false flags. So
for every war that we've had so far, for everything, huh?
It is because, and unfortunately, you're sitting in a country that is the terror tool of the world. I'm very sorry to say, but that's the fact. And the U.S. have been using false flags forever and ever since the creation of the USA to expand the empire. And so it is, but it's needed when you got these. The whole thing is that through all times, I think there's always been a few people. They call themselves the elite, who have thought that we are so much better than the rest of you. So we want you as slaves, and we want you to pay us tax and give us massages and rub our whatever, and do everything we want you to do. But how can they get us to do that? The only way they can do it is through fear. It is through fear that they can force us to do these things. So for millenniums, they have, if there wasn't an outer enemy that they could blame it on and say, oh my God, we need to join together because they're there saying boo, boo, boo. And if there isn't an outer enemy, then they have created the boogeyman out there. And this has been repeated again and again and again and again. And what these elite few, I call them the minority or the lightless, because the people who are into these power games are, I would say, I don't envy them, because they're into so much greed and all of these dark feelings where they would never really experience any kind of true happiness, because this black hole inside them will never be able to be filled without any spiritual healing. And so when you look at the methods they have been using through all of these years, there's so few of them. The methods are very, very few. And one of them, divide and conquer. You know, don't look at me. I'm not the one that is the problem. They say, between you are the problem. It's your neighbor. It's the Muslims. It's the Catholics. It's the blacks. It's the Negroes. It's the Indian. It's the Hindu. It's the Sikh. It's the Pakistani. It's the Swedes. It's the whatever. Divide and conquer. Get time enough to really look at where the problem is created. Divide and conquer. That's one of them. Another one is problem, reaction, solution. This is a super, super important one to know about. Problems, reaction, solution. Because they need us in fear. So, because if we are balanced, harmonious people that are just walking around in love with life and our neighbors and our friends and so on, and somebody says, go over there and start a war, shoot your enemy and whatever, we would just laugh and say, listen, if you want a war, you go, take your kids, go over there, get killed or whatever, we go over here, we have a beer and so on, come back and tell us how it went. But this is not the way they can do it. So what they do is problem, reaction, solution. The few in power that we think we've elected them to be there to protect us, but actually most of the time they have been selected behind the scenes. Anyway, the few in power secretly create a problem. This problem is nowadays often in the form of a bomb, a virus scare, a financial crash, a mass shooting, a terror act, or something like that. Problem to get the reaction from us. And the reaction they always want is an emotional outcry of fear. They do not want us to use the brain. They just want us to go into reaction, not action, but reaction. Just like, oh my God, we are under attack. We need protection. And then we, not knowing that the elite few are the ones who actually created the problem, turns towards them and say, please, please protect us. We need protection. And then they, who secretly created the problem, will serve as the solution. And the solution every single time is the same. You give up your freedoms, your liberties, your human rights, your civil rights. You pay for totally unjust wars. You're taxed to death. You have to accept total surveillance with cameras everywhere, body scanners, all of this kind of crap, militarized police, and so on, martial law, all of these things, not understanding that it's actually done from the inside. It is the elite few who are creating these things to get us into this pure fear mode so that they can get away with all of these things.
What I've noticed is a lot of this is almost like doing a world emotion. So the whole world gets into this moment of emotion. And with that, have you heard of the Schumann resonance?
No.
Okay, there's something that actually monitors the emotions of people all over the world, and these instruments are placed throughout the world. And they said the highest resonance actually came after 9/11. So it's almost like they collect information about our emotions, and think of what's going on. And I don't know if you've ever looked in this direction. Think of what's going on as far as what's happening, especially in the United States, the divide and conquer thing that's, as you say, that's happening right now, and the range of emotions that happen with this, because people are enraged right now. And I'm sure that's feeding that too. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Monsters, Inc. It's something, again, to look into. So
Have
let's
you
get
seen
back to you.
Have you seen The Matrix? I
Yeah,
mean,
well,
this is the
this
thing.
is beyond the Matrix. This is so like simple.
Mm,
And if people were to really like watch this movie and get it, it would be they would stop doing what they do. Even on Facebook, you see things
yeah.
again to raise emotions. And when you follow, especially what Monsters Inc. was talking about in a simple way, animated way, um, you go, okay, well, is it really for us to give a response, an emotional response, because we talk about emotional response? Um, is it for us to give an emotional response, or is it really for us to decide if we want to give a response, as opposed to having things trigger us to forcing us almost to give a response? So just something to look at.
I think it's really, really important what you're saying now, because there's a massive difference between action and reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Reaction is when somebody pushes your button and you just jump into whatever. You at all times, especially nowadays when so much is being pumped through us through this black box that is in front of most of us in our living room or wherever, different rooms, which the way it's being used nowadays, I see it as a pure sewage opening that is right in your living room being pumped at you. A massive, massive tool of propaganda, the way it's being used now.
Mm-hmm. It is. So
And
now you've covered quite a few of these. You've covered what happened in France. You've covered quite a few. You do a lot of research with Bilderberg. Do you want to speak a little bit about that?
yeah, of course. It's like I said, I've been on this road for some 30 years, and I've been invited now to both the Oswald Innocent conference in New Orleans in a few weeks, or it's actually this weekend, where I'm going to be one of the speakers, but via Skype. But then I'm going to be in Dallas. I've been invited as one of the key speakers at the JFK Assassination Conference on the 18th of November. And the reason why I was invited is because I dedicated my life to try and find out what actually happened that day, because the JFK assassination is so important is because it was a coup d'etat in the US, but also almost in the Western world, where very dark forces really got established. They got rid of the final obstacle in their way. And I would humbly suggest that all the presidents that have followed ever since JFK is just another pretty cover. It's the same front of a massive, very, very brutal war machine of death and destruction. And so these theater plays that we're seeing now with Hillary or Hitlery or Killery or whatever you want to call her, and Trump, it's just a theater. And when you look at, for instance, Hillary, I don't know a lot about Trump, and I don't follow this presidential thing at all, because since I know the game is rigged, I know it's just a theater, and it has nothing to do with the real power behind the scenes, because whoever wins, they will just continue. And they have done that ever since the JFK and onwards. So it's the same key players behind the scenes and just another pretty cover. As far as I've been informed a long time ago, the whole idea with this election is to get Obama in for a third term. That this whole thing with Hillary and Trump is just like a theater play, that a lot of false flag will take place, create a lot of chaos, which will demand for martial law, and then the Constitution will be put out of what do you call it, out of the game and in with Obama for a third term. I don't know. I have no idea what's going to go down, but this is what inside sources have informed me for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Before we even continue there, we talked about you were a journalist, and I guess you still are in that, right? So in that time, was there anything that you discovered that you went, what? That kind of put you on this path of changing how you saw things, or deciding that's not what I want to do, or I can't write lies anymore? Is there anything that
No, I never
happened to
wrote
you?
lies. I never wrote lies. But I was a journalist on a very low scale, sort of like in a local newspaper in a town for, I don't know, 20, 30,000 people, something like that. But what I did learn was to ask questions and listen to the answers, and also listen to what was not being said, because nowadays what is called a journalist, I don't think there's a lot of real journalists left, not in mainstream media, because when I look about people who are working the way I used to do, they're under so much time pressure most of the time, and they're given all of these tasks. What did Britney Spears have for breakfast, or that football player, he had a knee injury, or like the latest Idol, or
Brad and whatever. Yeah,
these
Brad and Angelina.
Nobody is given the time to look into these things, and it's very, very time consuming. And also nowadays, for instance, if you go to the United Nations or wherever, you're just being handed a piece of paper and that's it. This is what they decided. Boom, thank you and goodbye. Just go to your newspaper, put it in, and you're sort of like a photocopy machine, just taking the official story, pumping it out there. And then you look at the TT or Reuters and these news agencies, and everybody just takes it as God. The voice of God, like CNN, Fox, these type of things. Oh my God, if CNN says it, well, it must be true. And then when you look at the ownership behind these different news agencies, and how the same group that are behind so much terror in the world are actually controlling these media outlets. And when you look at them, they're very, very few. For instance, in the US, I think 96% is owned by the same owners, 6 owners. So very, very little independent news coverage at all. It is just like back to the photocopy machine, just push the button, push the button, push the button. And nobody looks into the real news. So that is why the alternative media has a very, very important role to play at this point in history. I hope that very shortly we will come back to where the mainstream media will wake up and suddenly go, whoa, 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 and start reporting what is actually the truth, because that is the only thing that matters.
I know it's really gotten to be, so imagine this, mainstream media commercialized.
We're up against the most powerful propaganda machine the world has ever seen. And this is why when people come to me and they're very worried and scared and all of things, step one, I say, there's a remote, connected to this black box in front of you. There's a magic button on it. It's normally red, and when you press it, it says off. That is step one to health, because you need to, if you imagine that you had your lips around the exhaustion pipe of a car, and it keeps pumping, you would feel very, very sick. And the only way to stop that sickness is to release the exhaustion pipe and get some fresh air. And every time something happens, when horrible, like a new mass shooting in a school, oh my God, every time something like that happens, or a bomb or a new ISIS attack or whatever, please ask yourself, who benefits from me getting scared? Who benefits from me believing this? Who benefits from me starting to hate my Muslim neighbor? Who benefits? Cui bono? The very, very ancient old question. Ask that. And then before you react, take a step back, breathe, go for a walk. If it's something important that you need to decide how you feel about, or you have to make a decision in your life, go for a long walk among trees, whatever, get out, cuddle a cat, get back into and grounding yourself, maybe meditate a bit, and then come back and look at it again with new eyes. Don't just go into reaction, because that is where they want us to just push this thing on us. So we just go, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Because also, what I love about this whole thing is it's come to a level that is so ridiculously bad. It is pure crap. I mean, the quality of these operations are just ridiculous. And they even use the same script every single time. Every single time.
It's always after a drill.
Oh, God, it's like, I can't believe it sometimes, because now I've become sort of like an authority in this area. So people from all over the world contact me every time something happens. I look into it, and it is the same, and the same.
I had a question with this.
It's the same, like watching the same Rocky movie 42 times and still be surprised that it ends the same way.
I have a question about that. Now, we notice that it's just becoming obvious, like really obvious. It's like, are they even really trying to hide this anymore? So do you think that actually doing that is a part of the whole conspiracy, that they're making it a lot more obvious because, there's a lot more YouTube now, and there's a lot of information floating around YouTube. So do you think that this is all part of the grand scheme? Like, okay, let's make it obvious for them. Let them think false flags, and then maybe is it time for us to do something real and they'll call it a false flag? Or where do you think this is going? Because this isn't random either.
No, there's no random thing about this at all. These are very, very coordinated operations. I think it's a combination. I think up until the Boston bombing, they really tried to hide the whole thing, but the Boston bombing was just getting too obvious. And when you looked at the Google statistic of the word false flag, it just skyrocketed. Nobody knew about what a false flag was before then. But after that, boom, I and many others have spent, I don't know how many hundreds of interviews trying to just show the templates that are being used so that people will recognize the ingredients of a false flag, so that we can, it's just like normally I compare like with baking a pie, you have certain ingredients, water, egg, flour, I don't know, salt, some spices, and you put it in an oven and you get a pie. The thing that you can change and do variations with is the shape, maybe the spices, but more or less it's a pie. You can't change so much, maybe some coloring, but the basic is a pie. And if you look at this false flag terror thing, it's like a terror pie that you just need to know, okay, the very few ingredients involved, and so that when you see these main parts that are involved in a false flag operation, we can go through them very easily, then it will also make you become aware of it. As soon as they start setting it up, you can, I feel the smell, I can feel the smell, here we go again, and then you can foresee what they're going to do. And what I try to recommend people is, since a drill is always step one for these false flag operations, these so-called inside terror actions and so on, they need a drill on location. And this drill will be announced on TV or newspapers and so on, because they need that drill to be able to, for instance, shut off streets, close off streets, get permissions to get all their vehicles in position. There will be lots of strange things going on in that area. And they don't want us normal people to become too nosy. Oh, it's a security drill for our protection. How good is that? So we stay away. But this drill, for one thing, they can rehearse. They can get all the explosives and smoke bombs in position. They can get patsies and crisis actors. They can get the catering and all of these things, makeup facilities, all of these things, plus the marketing agencies working on the slogans and logos and these things. So when the drill is the first step. So as soon as there is a drill announced anywhere, I really try and urge people to go there, bring their friends, family, bring cameras, video cameras, mobile phones, and film them. Go there the day before it's supposed to take place, because then that's when it's all being set up. And it will look exactly like a film set, for Coca-Cola or whatever. You will see the same vehicles, the same type of people, the same kind of shutting off the roads, but there will be a more military presence as well. But the thing is, these people, I need to say, are a bit like cockroaches. They cannot act when the light is there. They can only do their stuff in the darkness. So by starting to film them and make it very obvious that they're being observed, we can stop these things. Instead of always being one step behind, we can become one step ahead. And I know for a fact that I've been part of stopping several false flag massacres just by smelling, knowing what's going on, and then go action, totally non-violent but fearless exposure of these things, and it just comes to a stop, a halt. And I have a friend who's a CIA whistleblower. His name is Chip Tatum, and he was involved in false flag operations during his career. And he says their timeline and time schedule is normally very, very tight, and many different operations depend on the success of earlier operations. So every time we screw it up for them, it can be delayed for months ahead. So if we mess it up, for instance, in Oklahoma, it can change things in the Ukraine and so on. Do you see because it's very important when you look at these things to look at the world the way they do it. They don't see separate countries. They look at the world as a corporation where countries are like franchises. And so they just play it like a chess game. And so this is, I tell you, it is so much of this mayhem we see today is totally coordinated by a small little group of people.
So you mentioned something which I found very interesting. It was something called low karma.
Low what?
Karma.
Did I say that?
Yeah, you talked about low karma, where it says that that people, they have to tell you what they're going to do, so they show it in a sense.
Yeah, the law of karma, for sure, for sure. It's also called something else, the
law of karma.
According to the old scriptures, somewhere somebody told me that the devil and the good, the good and the bad, the evil and the good, in this game, in this universe we live in, there are some certain game rules, and one of them is that the evil is allowed to do stuff, but it has to expose the methods before it does it. I don't know, but I can only say that I've heard from inside sources that the people in the so-called elite, the way they interpret the law of karma is that if they inform us, the victims, about what they're going to do, and we don't react, then the bad karma is on our shoulders, not on the attacker. And this we see again and again and again. It's like a Dan Brown novel. They leave clues right there, hidden in plain sight, right in front of our eyes, about the next upcoming event. So
as they would
every
say,
time a big... Sorry?
I said, as they would say, predictive programming.
Yeah, it is bizarre. It is bizarre, but I'm very grateful for it, because every time something like in Nice or Brussels or somewhere else, when these things happen, I'm so into the details. I'm studying all the footage I can get hold of, everything, looking for the clue for the next one. And I've been able to go out on several occasions on international radio, predicting it's going to happen there, there. And I went out on international radio 1 month before the Copenhagen shootings happened in February 2015. 1 month before, and said it's going to happen somewhere around this train station. It didn't happen exactly when I said. It happened exactly 1 month later on the hour, exactly on that spot. So it is not because I'm super intelligent or have a crystal ball. It's just that when you see how they work and how these people that are involved are not that they don't have a lot of imagination or creativity. I think they go with the same. So
as you said, the first thing we do is we look at if there's a drill. Is there another thing that we can do to notice when it's a false flag?
Yes, there's plenty of them. You're going to see them again and again. There is the drill. Then we have the lone crazy guy. I love that one. The lone crazy guy, or the lone nut. As soon as you hear anything that happens and there's a lone crazy guy involved, please pay attention. The reason why they want to blame it on a lone crazy guy is because alone, then by law, there's no conspiracy, and then they can treat it in a totally different way, especially if that person dies there. Mm-hmm. So lone is important, and crazy, because no motive. He was just crazy. He just went up and killed that person. He just went in and shot 50 gay people because he was crazy. Lone crazy, that is one major one. And these people that are being blamed for this are always totally innocent, absolutely innocent. They're just there to take the fall. And many are spending their lives in prison for things that they have not done. So very important to get these people out, I would say. So you got the drill, you got the patsy, you got the Allah Akbar. I mean, how many times? Please change the script sometimes, But it is by repetition, the way they use these keywords to hammer it in. When you listen to news, you will hear terror attack, terrorist, terror attack, terror, this, and then Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar. The thing is, I've got a question for you. Where were all the Islamic fundamentalist terrorists before the Berlin Wall came down? There was none. There was none. You can follow the trend of the boogeyman in the James Bond movies. In the early days, it was the Russians, East German, Bulgarians, Polish, sometimes, Eastern Bloc type of people. Then it came up to where the Berlin Wall went down. For a little while there, Reagan and the guys came together and said, "Oh my God, we need to create a new boogeyman because we're at a point here where there's suddenly the Cold War is over. I mean, we can't have peace because then we can't make billions and billions out of war and drugs and these things. So we need to stir up the emotion." So they tried with the alien threat for a little while. Didn't really work out. We didn't buy that one. So in on stage, the Muslim terrorist, which was perfect because they're dark, brown eyes, big mustaches. Sometimes they have very strange names like Abdul Karim Karumkara. They come from countries that most people have no idea where they even located these countries, especially if you're in the US. And then they have this wonderful religion called Islam that has been turned around so that nowadays, if you say Islam, most people's mind will say terrorism. Mm-hmm. And if you say Muslim, most people's mind will think terrorist. So if you put a photo, you do something, you blow up a bomb somewhere, and then you blame it on someone called Karim Karumkara with a big mustache, big eyebrows, and you say that his name is Abdul. Boing, he is down. He's going down. He's sentenced. Nobody will doubt his guilt. No, it's awful. These poor people, my God, I've been to, I don't know how many, I've been to 40 odd countries somewhere, many of the Muslim countries. The people I meet, I have not met one terrorist. The only terrorist I met are people in suits and high titles, high positions, coming in bulletproof BMWs with bodyguards, standing up after these so-called terror attacks, saying, we have to unite the nation in the front of terror, in the face of terror, we will not bend down. These are the real terrorists. They are the murderers, these people, not these poor buggers that are being blamed for this. And then you have Al-Qaeda. It's a total creation of the CIA together with some assistance from the Mossad. Al-Qaeda it actually means database, is the CIA database of agents that they trained and funded in the war against Russia. Okay, so then when that war ended, suddenly they had all these warriors. So what can we do with that? Let's create some mayhem. In on stage, boom, Al-Qaeda. Then they try to use Al-Qaeda. It is an absolute joke, this whole Al-Qaeda thing. And then they were being used as a boogeyman for a long time. Then in the end, you couldn't even scare your kid. You know, if you don't behave, Al-Qaeda will come and get you. So in the end, they had to upgrade it to Al-Qaeda 3.0 or ISIS. You know, ISIS is actually in Israeli security intelligence services. It is Mossad and the CIA, this creation. So now they started changing the name so that we couldn't really grip it, you know. So it's ISIL or
ISIL,
or IS. So it's the same. And ISIS are mostly contractors that are brought in to create mayhem. And sponsored by Toyota. I mean, they even have product placement with all of these operations. You show me one picture of ISIS where there's a vehicle. If it's not a Toyota, come and bite my right arm off. It is sponsored by Toyota.
I figured
And
Toyotas were just really good cars, and that's why they only use them. They don't break down in deserts.
Yeah, but where are these deserts? Where are these deserts? Show me one of these photos where you can actually see where they are. A lot of this footage is taken in Nevada and Arizona and down in Texas. In some of these vehicles, there's even, you know, they forgot to paint over the logos of some of the local companies that they bought these cars secondhand from. Mm-hmm. And then you see the photos where they're praying towards Mecca. And they're lying all over the place in totally different directions. You know, one of the main rules for a Muslim is take out Mecca. Where's Mecca? It's over there. Everybody turns towards the exact same direction and do their prayer in that direction. But in these photos, all over the place. Not Muslims. It is a joke.
So what's another thing we should look for? Step 4.
Can I just go back to ISIS because I love these guys. I mean, I love them. I mean, you see all of these beheadings, you know, green screen where you got the victims totally calm. They're just there to get their head chopped off. You see the wind do different things in the clothes of the different people. You know, they're not even at the same studio, or they've got fans from 2 different directions. The shadows are from 2 different directions because they're different lighting sources, because they are in a green screen studio, not real. Then you see the background. Show me where they are. They're in some kind of a gravel pit somewhere where you cannot see anything. There's no place that will give you any direction. This is where it happened. No, because it is in a green screen studio. So you start studying the history of ISIS, this terror tool. It came from absolute nowhere, and then suddenly it was the biggest threat the world had ever seen. How did that happen? And then you see the first leader, I can't remember his name, it starts with W, Washua or something like that. Mm-hmm. He was quite impressive because he came up as the leader and then he was killed. Then he was in jail and he escaped and he was wounded. Then he was killed and then he escaped again. Very impressive. I am not kidding you. This, when you really look into it, this is what happened. So once he was really killed, because apparently he was a bit like a cat, then the next one came in. And I love what they do with the names, because when you have to have somebody just as a patsy, you give them really weird names that nobody can remember, like or something like that. Three names. They always have three names. It's the same with serial killers or people being blamed for top assassinations. Three names to give it more sort of credibility or more power, for some, James Earl Ray, Lee Harvey Oswald, these type of things. But if it's not just a one-time patsy, if it's somebody that you need to be able to scare people with on a constant basis, they need to come up with something that is easy to remember, like a virus name, Ebola, Ebola, Ebola. You can always dance to it. The Zika as well. That sounds like a.
And we have the Zika here, yes.
But then, after the first leader of ISIS, in came who? What should we call him? Baghdadi. So that, since everybody knew that Baghdad had been bombed to crap, that would work. So they called him Baghdadi. And he had the same incredible life force. He was killed, he was wounded, he escaped, and he was killed. And then he was replaced by a second Mr. Baghdadi. And as far as I know, he's still there. So these are very, very impressive people, with a boundless spirit that keeps living. It is a joke when you really seriously look into these things, because they don't count on anyone being a geek like myself, who are willing to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of hours looking into these things. Mm-hmm. Then you can pull it off. But if you really start looking into it, it is a joke.
Well, I remember looking after 9/11. I think I was actually in the States, and there was a quick news report on CNN, and it was showing some young people, maybe between 14 and maybe 17, some young boys, and they were in the streets, and they were waving these flags and like smiling with the guy in the camera. And so we're talking maybe 10 kids. And the news reporter was saying, oh, the people in the streets are celebrating. There are hundreds of people in the streets celebrating that this 9/11 attack happened. And I'm like, what? And then for some reason, the shot opened up, and you saw a guy behind these young people with a box giving them these flags and these little, sparkly things to wave in the air, and telling them, look at the camera, go ahead, look at the camera and smile at the camera. So like, this is where you get to see it. And, I live on an island, so we're exposed to Hurricane Hugo. And I never forgot the New York Times. I saw an article in the New York Times, and there was a woman with a machete in her hand. And I know the person. I said, so why did you have a machete in your hand? And, were you really afraid for your life? And she was like, no, I had to cut myself out of my driveway. So you see where things get very twisted. And, I personally think this is all that's going on in the world. I laugh a lot. This is some days some of my friends still can't, they don't know what to say to me. And some of them I really can't speak to, because, they're so caught up in the drama of things. And, so again, what else can we look for beside Allah Akbar? What else can we look for inciting false flags?
It's just like you say. I really enjoy it. I did a presentation recently at the Open Mind Conference in Copenhagen, mm-hmm. and I had people in tears. They were laughing, so they were crying. I was going through all of these terror events from April of 2016 up until more or less now. And when you really show what happened, it becomes hilarious. It is, but this is also by being able to take a step back, just like you, laugh at it. Once you start seeing how it's pulled off, you break the spell, you get out of fear mode, you lift your spirit, and you're not affected in the same way. you know. And I finished this conference with a sing along. I said that I and a friend, his name is Sam Gardner, and we have spent many hours in contemplation and meditation to come up with the lyrics as a direct message to the elite and the forces that carry out these operations. And I said, so anyone who feels in their heart that they can stand for these words and support them, please join me. And so I started singing. I'm so tired of this bullshit, yes I am. I'm so tired of the bullshit, yes I am. I'm so tired of this bullshit, tired of the bullshit, I'm so tired of the bullshit, yes I am. Verse 2, I'm so tired of this bullshit, yes I am. Do you know, it's like break the spell, break the fear, and shake people with love and laughter and just like wake up, because we're sitting here being absolute brain dead while they are slaughtering innocent people. It is not okay. You know, it is not okay. And it's not enough just to like something on Facebook. People are being tortured and killed in your name with your tax money on a daily basis by your children in uniform, among others. I mean, it's awful. Even Denmark is at war. I mean, I really gave them a bit of a bollocking in Denmark, saying, what the hell happened to my beautiful country where I was born, that was famous for friendliness and kindliness and all of these things, and now in aggressive wars? Not okay. And just because a few people have hijacked the country and are standing there in nice suits and saying hallelujah does not mean that it's okay. You know, take the power back, wake up, because like I say, we are at a point in history, I would say, that it's one thing to laugh at these things, but if they get away with what they want, our future sucks big time. They want to force us into a very, very controlled, very, very sinister, dark world. I tell you that. So we need to wake up now before they close the gate. Because once that's done with the technology they have nowadays, not easy to get out. So this is the chance.
When you say close the gate, well, I guess we can talk about that a little more in the woo hour. I have one more question to ask you about the, we hear all these stories in regards to the, in regards to what's happening to refugees, whether it's the young women disappearing, people dying. Any thoughts on that, on what's going on there? Because, I remember last year I was in Munich, and the day before I got into Munich station, they said 20,000 refugees came in through there. And so you see what's going on in Germany. You see, and I guess they've stopped now. I've even had friends that they're teaching there. They're like, oh, we're teaching refugees. And that's kind of backed away too. And I think in your life, you have also taught refugees, Iranian refugees, I believe. So what do you think is happening in the camps?
I smuggled out some people from Iran myself to get them to Sweden. I tell you, I live in the south of Spain. We live very close to Gibraltar. We can see the Mediterranean. We can see Morocco on a clear day. And I look at news and I see all of these, the footage, new refugee boats are coming, people are trying to escape in the thousands, people are drowning, they're so... We've been living here for 16 years now. I have not seen one boat, I have not seen one refugee, I have not seen anything. People call us, say, how are you? We're fine, why? There's this big fire. Where? Right where you live. Okay. They call again. How are you? I'm fine. Why? There's a massive earthquake. Where? Right where you live. I tell you, when it comes to this refugee thing, I have absolutely no idea. At the same time, I totally doubt the official story. Because I know there was one false flag they pulled off with a stabbing in a school in Sweden. They had just had a drill where the whole Swedish police and fire brigades, everything was training in that drill, the exact same scenario, more or less, that happened 1 week later for the first time ever. Coincidence? I mean, my God. Okay, but it happened in Trollhättan, which is one of the cities in Sweden with the most immigrants. Okay, and the very morning before this happened, there were big headlines saying 194,000 refugees coming or entering the borders of Sweden. Okay, so just like you, I've spoken to people and so on, and yes, there were some refugees coming, but 194,000 is a lot of people. So I've been trying to track these people down. How many arrived? Yeah, but I saw some at the station. There were crowds. Okay, 194,000 and a big crowd. There's a massive difference here. Yeah. So how many? Yeah, but we're being invaded. How many? And then they say, oh, Sweden has become the new rape capital of the world. It's horrible. Yeah. And then I've seen the headlines. 1.9458% raise in rapes. But what they see is 1,458%. No, it's 1.45. That's how they do it. And you go there, every fourth woman in Sweden is being raped everywhere. You go there. I have not seen anyone. I don't know anyone who's been raped. I don't,
And women are changing their attire so that they're not so attractive anymore.
No, but also, I tell you, I was in Greece once many years ago. There was this big political rally. I was not there. I was just stuck in the city in Thessaloniki one day, and there was going to be this big political rally. It was Papandreou, the president, and then his opponent Mitsotakis. These two people were meeting there, and so it was before the election. So it was really important for them to gather a lot of people. Okay, and in the evening there were so many people in the town square. I mean, I've seen aerial footage. I was right in the middle of it. There were thousands and thousands of them. But what most people did not see was that the whole day when I was sat there, I saw these buses coming from Bulgaria. Bulgaria in those days, really, really poor. And these buses in the hundreds were coming packed with people. And when they left the bus, they were given these signs, Papandreou, 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 Papandreou. So loads of Bulgarians in this square of Saloniki, they didn't even speak Greek. But it looked really good in the footage. This is the thing. It's a psyop. We're being played. And I tell you, just like you said before this thing, I was in Tehran many, many years ago when I was going to help these people out. And one day I was walking down the street and I saw there was something happening down the street. The whole city totally calm. Nothing was happening. But down on a street corner, there was some young people screaming and so on. So I started walking down there and I saw a TV crew and I saw like there were 8-10 teenagers, with the American flag on fire in front of the camera, screaming Allah Akbar. And then they had like 30 seconds film footage. Thank you and goodbye. Here's some money. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Maybe that's the same footage I saw.
It is the same. When they invaded Somalia, the US troops and so on, they had to redo the invasion because they didn't get the good lighting for the footage. So the boats had to go out again. The guerrilla had to move back and then redo it. And the troopers could come and jump on the beach and knock over some of these guerrillas and stand on them and say, "Whoa, we're the victors." It is a joke. And I tell you, many of these, you see footage of all of these refugees coming. I truly believe that you have like maybe 8-10 buses of so-called refugees or extras, dark-haired people, yeah. And then you go to the borders of Germany and you call the media and say, come here, my God, there's so much going on. Take film and footage and everything. So TV crews are there for like 10, 15, 20 minutes because they're in a hurry. And they see all of these lines of people coming. Oh my God, what a disaster. They do their footage and then they take off again. Then the buses come forward, you put them on the buses again. You go to the Yugoslavian border or the Croatian border or Slovenian border, or same people, you drive them there, you drop them off, they come walking, the TV cameras film them. Oh, there's a lot more here. No, it's the same. They are the same. And
Wow.
I tell you, with so many of these false flag operations, what I truly believe is that what we're seeing is not hundreds of Islamist terrorists. During all of my years, I have not been able to find one terrorist the way we're told they look like. I have not been able to find one Muslim terrorist at all. These are inside jobs, and they're carried out, if I'm correct, by the same little team, like a rock band, a Rocky Horror Show on global tour, just like Pink Floyd. They're being transported in big army planes from army base to army base, then transported in buses to location with local backup. If it's in Australia and Sydney or Copenhagen, Denmark, Ottawa, Canada, you always have NATO countries or these different alliances. These are the countries where it's going to happen. Turkey, England, Germany, France. France is a big one. And they're just being transported. So you've got the same crisis actors, the same people running around in SWAT team uniforms. It's just that they have the local SWAT team uniforms. It's the same people running around. You got the same actors doing the Allah Akbar thing. You have the same crisis actors. I've even been able to identify same victims in different areas. Somebody was killed over there. No, not really, because she's over here as well. There's somebody running, screaming there. Well, she was in Sydney as well. So, and I've spoken to Chip Tatum. And Chip Tatum, the CIA whistleblower, he is not just anyone. He was a deep cover agent for 25 years. He was one of the Night Stalker pilots, these black helicopters. He was one of the pilots in the whole Iran-Contras scandal, flying under the commander of Oliver North, under the direct control of Clinton and Bush, filming both of them, receiving tons and tons of cocaine, starting the whole drug epidemic in the U.S., weapons out down to Nicaragua and El Salvador, Honduras, and drugs back in. Totally controlled by Bush Sr. and Clinton, who was the governor of Arkansas at that time, and his darling wife, Hillary. I mean, career criminals, serial murderers on a scale that you have no idea. If you do not believe me, go in and check the body count of the Clintons. There's a whole long list of people that just in their personal life that they've gotten rid of in a very brutal way.
Back in a moment. Boundless Spirit goes off the rails. Next up in our members-only segment, the Woo Woo Hour. Whether it's happening on the planet, off the planet, or inside the planet, host Charlene Springer, expert guests, and you dare to go there in the Woo Woo Hour.